Cry for me 君の声が聞こえてる叫んでる僕の名前を
Hi everybody, this is Kevin, and welcome back to another video. And today, I am finally going to share my thoughts on The Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky the Third, which I just finished last night. And as I sat there watching the credits and all the ending scenes, I thought to myself, you know, I don't smoke, but I could really use a cigarette right now. Because it was some ending, man, and you have to play all these Sky games together. It's the Trails in the Sky trilogy. They all bounce off each other, and you're not going to understand the story if you just started with second chapter, or for whatever reason started with Sky the Third. So I'm going to say right now, all spoilers are on the table. If you haven't played first chapter and second chapter, what are you doing? If you haven't played Sky the Third, get to it, play them all. I can't praise these games enough. I've already done a video on first chapter and second chapter. I said I loved first chapter, which I do love first chapter. And I declared second chapter a masterpiece, which I stand by. But I have to say, Sky the Third is my favorite. It's my favorite of the whole Sky trilogy. And, you know, I'm not going to declare it a masterpiece because there's some things with gameplay in this, in that it's a dungeon crawler, and for whatever reason, a lot of people dismiss this game for it being a dungeon crawler, and it deviating from what first chapter and second chapter were, which, while it is a dungeon crawler, you do sort of make your way into previous areas and are able to explore. But the story in this game is fantastic, and I've said this many times on my channel. JRPGs are my favorite form of entertainment. I love JRPGs. They're better, for me anyway, than movies, TV shows, books, you name it. Give me a JRPG, and that's it. That's all I need. And, I mean, these games more or less are visual novels with turn-based combat sprinkled in and boss fights because of all the text. And I think I read somewhere that with the localization, they did a little interview where they said that I think Sky the Third in particular is as long as the Lord of the Rings trilogy in terms of dialogue and text, which I believe it. I believe it. And Sky the Third isn't necessarily as long as second chapter. I think I clocked in at 90-something hours with second chapter. Sky the Third was a little over 60 hours, so still a very long game. And overall, with the 3 Sky trilogy, I was like 200 hours, so 200 hours well spent. And the meme that I saw prior to getting into the Trail series of, oh, you gotta play 1,000 hours for these 10 games. I'm all for it, man. Bring on Trails from Zero. I'm ready. So, anyway. Let's start with our main protagonists here, because with first chapter and second chapter, we had Estelle and Joshua Bright as the main protagonists. And while they do return in this game, we have two new main protagonists, well, a returning character and a brand new character, and that is Father Kevin Graham and Sister Ries Argent. Now, Father Kevin we met in 2nd chapter, and he was kind of mysterious. He was the supposed wandering priest of the Septian Church, going around doing the church's bidding. But then around chapter 3, we learned, oh, he has this ancient artifact, which actually was the rod that Mayor Dalmor had in the first game, and he used it to counteract the black ornament that Captain Amalthea had attached to the tank. And then with the very ending, which, yeah, spoilers, again, the spoiler warning's out there, so if you haven't played 1st chapter, 2nd chapter, and at the end of 2nd chapter, he was the one who murdered Weissman, the Faceless, and the third Anguis of Ouroboros with the salt pail, which turned Weissman into salt. And then Campanella shows up and then destroys him as he's cackling, saying, "Oh, I've much to report." And we'll get to Campanella! Oh, stay tuned for Campanella, for possibly the most important cutscene in the greater scheme of the other Trails games that are going to take place, and I'm assuming Zero, Azure, Cold Steel, and whatever else. So, you have that, and as the game progressed, obviously, Kevin was more than just a wandering priest. He, at first, says, oh, I'm part of the Gralsritter, and then at the very end, we learn that he is the 5th Dominion of the Septian Church, also known as the Heretic Hunter. What a badass name. So the Septian Church, I haven't really talked about the Septian Church in either reviews that much anyway, but they're an organization that tries to keep the peace. They go around stopping the villains, the sinners, the heretics, if you will, and there is a hierarchy there with the dominions at the top. I think they said there were 12 dominions, but I could be mistaken. We only really see, I think, 2 dominions in this game. The first dominion, Ein Selnitz, and then, of course, the 5th Dominion, Kevin Graham. And was Weissman a Dominion? I know Weissman was part of the church, but I'm not necessarily sure he was a Dominion. I think he was just a high-ranking official in the church, and that's why he was deemed a heretic. And then below the Dominions, you have the Squires, which Sister Ries is a Squire, who in turn serves under Kevin. And then below them, you have the Knights, the Gralsritter, the Grail Knights, which Kevin was that in the beginning, and I guess when he told Estelle and Joshua, or rather just Estelle in chapter 3, he wasn't lying, but he was more than just an ordinary knight. So Sister Ries has a connection to Kevin. They were both brought up together, and when you're first introduced to her, they make note that they haven't seen each other in 5 years, and she's pissed off, you know, rightfully so. It's like, okay, Kevin, one of my favorite characters in all of media now. I mean, this dude, he has a dark backstory, and people constantly throw that word around like everything's dark, it's so dark. No, dude, his backstory is dark. It is something else, man. And his coping mechanism is putting on the smiling face, where you saw him in 2nd chapter. He's always like, oh yeah, I'm just happy-go-lucky. No, dude. That's the way he copes around other people. But deep down, he is trying to atone for his own sins and all the guilt and regret he feels. And it is some masterful storytelling in that, you know, in between each chapter, in 1st chapter, 2nd chapter, there'll always be scenes, whether it's Ouroboros scheming or Joshua doing his own thing. In Sky the Third, it shows little snippets of Kevin's backstory, sometimes out of order. But when you get to the end, you piece it all together, and it's like, wow, okay. So the game starts out you controlling Kevin aboard this airship, trying to retrieve an artifact, and man, he is so overpowered. It starts with the game, he's got all these powerful ornaments. He still has his S-Craft Grail Sphere, which I love it, man. It's like, I hold in my hand the chalice of heaven, may its holiest of light act as our shield. But now he has new moves, in particular this one called Mortal Punishment, where you can get like a circle around the enemies, attack like 3 or 4 enemies at a time, and it's like, let's end this! Strike! And it's such a badass moment. I love the voice acting in this game. When we get to some of Kevin's S-Crafts later, he gets 2 new S-Crafts, and just the storytelling with those S-Crafts, my goodness. But he's there trying to retrieve this artifact. Of course, he gets it, jumps out the friggin' airship, and gets in his own airship, the Merkaba 5. And the Merkaba is a word from, I think, the Kabbalah, right? From Jewish mysticism. So I like how they sort of incorporate those words there. That's interesting. And then he gets his next assignment, which is to go underneath Grancel, right? And investigate this cube, which was left behind by the Ariel. And we actually meet Erica and Dan Russell, who are Tita's parents, which was cool. And she's like scolding Kevin, saying, "Oh, you put my daughter in danger. How could you?" Which, yeah, Tita's like, what, 11 or 12 years old? So they did put her in danger, but, you know, she can hold her own. And she holds her own even more in this game with some of her new abilities and crafts. So there's a lot of tension between Kevin and Ries because, again, they haven't seen each other in 5 years. And he's putting on his smiling face, and Ries is like, you know, why haven't you talked to me? You made all these new friends. What about me? And really, it's because Kevin is trying to punish himself for his past sins. He didn't want to harm Ries, is what we learn later on. So they investigated this cube, and actually there's this funny sequence with our boy Gilbert, who... he was Mayor Dowmer's steward in the first game, and then in second chapter, there's the scene on the Glorious when Estelle fights him, and is like, "Oh, I remember you." And this dude, he shows up a ton of times for comic relief, and actually has a moment in the end where it's like, dude, Gilbert, what a legend! So there's a fight between him, and he actually gets caught in this whole mess. But they investigate this cube, and it basically sucks Kevin and Ries, and also Gilbert, and quite a few others into this place known as Phantasma, where we meet this character named Schwarzritter, who is wearing a mask, but if you can see his hair, you know who it is. So, Schwarzritter, Low, shows up as one of the head guardians for the ruler of Phantasma. And that's where we get the whole dungeon crawling sequence where we're in this other world. And we have to find our way out. Kevin and Ries go around. They find these other cubes, the ceiling stones. And they find their new friends. Or not really their new friends, but their old friends who join them in their party. And it's pretty cool how, like, some of the early party members you meet is like Julia, Muir. And I like how they did that because those two became playable in second chapter at the very end. So, I mean, I used Muir. I hardly ever used Julia, though, at least in second chapter. But in this game, you're kind of forced to use them early on. And Muir's S-Craft is so badass, too. A righteous witness. He's like, "My sword and soul are as one! Righteous witness!" Which, the voice actor for him is Travis Willingham. I always thought it was Dan Green. He kind of sounds like Dan Green from Yu-Gi-Oh! But, yeah, I like how you find those characters early. You find Josette. And Josette has this cute little hat on. And the Kapuas, who are formerly the Kapua Sky Bandits, now have the Kapua Delivery Service. And it's like, yes! They have a new lease on life. And she's great. I love her S-Craft, too, with the Bobcat. All the S-Crafts are fantastic, man. But as you progress, you find more ceiling stones. And new characters join. And then you come across this new concept in the game known as memory doors. Now, there's, I think, 20 different doors, maybe 25, 30, there's a lot. There are what's known as moon doors. I think there's 5 of them. And these give you backstories on all our characters. And the cutscenes go on, for some of them, an hour and a half. Now, people have said this game is divisive for that reason, because there's a lot of text. It's basically the visual novel, whatever. It's dungeon crawler. I loved it. The writing is so good. I've already been with these characters for hours, and I love seeing more of them. The first one, I think, was Tita and Agate, and then you also see, like, the reunion between Tita and her parents, Erica and Dan, and there's, like, this tension going on, because this is all taking place after second chapter, and Tita has begun inviting Agate over for, monthly dinner. Once a month, Agate takes a break from his bracer duties. They have dinner, and he meets Tita's parents, and Erica in particular is like, "How dare you? What have you done to my darling Tita? You'll pay for this." And Tita's story is she wants to see Ren again, but because Ren has Patamater, the giant mech, she can't compete. So she, with the help of her parents, decides to build this orbital gear, and also Professor Russell, her grandfather, helps as well. So you get to see fun scenes like that. Erica is like, "Oh, Agate, you'll be the perfect test subject. Step right up, take your meeting." And just the way her expression with her eyes light up, hilarious, man. I love that. So you have the moon doors. I'll get into more of the moon doors in a minute, but I just wanted to tell you about that one because I believe that's the only mandatory one. There are so many excellent cutscenes locked behind these doors that you can just skip. I mean, if you want to speedrun it, you can skip it, but me, I went through all of them. All of them. Even the arena, even the minigame ones like the fishing, which was a little tricky, but press X to win. Just mash X, you'll win that one. So, the moon doors, like I said, they're between an hour to an hour and a half. There's 15 star doors, more or less the same thing. Sometimes you'll have to fight a battle, but other times it's around 15 minutes to 30 minutes of story with all our characters. We'll get to some of them in greater detail. Door 14 has some very important implications for later Trails games, because it reveals the Grandmaster as well as the 6 other Angelus, and reveals a lot more about our boy Campanella and what he's been up to. And then there's 5 sun doors, which are mini games. We have fishing with Estelle. There's like a shooter with the Capuas and the airship, fighting off Gilbert, if you can believe that. There's the blackjack one. Yeah, so in the other games, there were these books, and one of the books was about Gambler Jack. And in the mini game, you can play blackjack against Gambler Jack. It's like, what? What is this? There's also Campanella's quiz game, and then the arena, which the arena is very tough, but I don't even know if it's really worth it, but I did it. Why not? And I love the images for the arena. There's some great artwork. You already know I'll have the artwork throughout the video, so. But yeah, you meet all your friends, and I want to say it's chapter 4. Shit really hits the fan. You start fighting these demons. Literally demons and devils from hell. That's what they say. And one of the devils shows up as this giant beast. And it uses like the evil eye that Weissman used to paralyze Estelle and Joshua in the previous games. And they're all paralyzed. And Ries had left for a while, or not really left, but stayed behind in the garden and said, "All right, Kevin, you know, I see what you've done. You've made all these new friends and left me behind." And it's like, he really did. But again, that was his coping mechanism. And our heroes are trapped. They can't really do anything. And then Ries shows up and tries to attack, but she can't really do anything. So Kevin releases his Stigma. The dark Stigma known as the Spear of Loa, which is his new S-craft, and he breaks the barrier. And I love the dialogue with the Spear of Loa attack. First of all, his expression, again, his happy-go-lucky expression changes to the scowl he had at the end of the 2nd chapter. And when he does the attack, he goes, "May 1,000 thorns adorn your flesh with despair. May you be abolished, ignorant and alone. Strike! Unholy spears of time!" Unholy spears! This guy is a man of the church, and he says unholy spears. And it's such a powerful attack. It fills the whole board, attacks everything. And it is fucking Kino. So he does that attack, and then it takes a lot out of him because he's been suppressing that power. I mean, he didn't even use that against Weissman. He used the Salt Tail against Weissman. So he's out of commission for a while, and then Ries takes lead of the party. Whenever you're traversing in the game, I think Kevin is always mandatory, but there's also instances where Kevin and Ries are mandatory. And then because the party is so big here, you like split up in certain sections. You have a party of 4, and then at the very end, everyone gets involved, of course. So yeah, Kevin has to rest, and Ries takes control, and you find our heroes, and like they're all throughout the world. When they find Estelle and Joshua, which they find Joshua first, and then a chapter or so later you find Estelle, they're in Crossbell, and that was the ending of 2nd chapter. They're going to Crossbell to find Ren, And Ren joins the party in this game. And, oh, it's so sweet, man. I love Ren, and her backstory, man. We'll get to that. That'll be its own section. But you keep finding new characters. Annalie, basically every character from the game, the first 2 games, except for Kurt. Kurt doesn't rejoin the party. But Annalise rejoins the party. Ren, like I said, Josette, Muir, Julia, Zin, everybody. You already know. Shara. Oh yeah, Shara and Olivert. Now he's Olivert, not Olivier. We know he's the Prince Olivert. And he's wearing his royal garb, which I love his new outfit there. And then Shara, who was smoking hot. She's smoking hot in both games. She's even better looking here. She got a haircut and she got a new outfit on. She's so cute. So we got that. And then another character to join the party. We have Colonel Alan Richard. Which this dude, again, he was the villain in first chapter, but it was revealed that he was being mind controlled by Weissman to do the bidding. And he's been stripped of his colonel duties. One of the doors, you learn that he's doing his own investigations on the side. And he has a new lease on life trying to atone for his past transgressions. But he's in his colonel outfit here because the way Phantasma works is the characters are manifest as you know them best. Or so it says. And his S-Craft, man, he has the one, it's called, like, Afterglow Smasher, I think it's called. And it's like, think you're clever, die with honor. It's so awesome. And then he gets Sakura, Morning Moon, which is like, I forget how the words go, but it's like, oh, fallen warriors, gather to meet your doom. It's fucking so good. And he's one of the most powerful attackers in the game. So some of the S-Crafts, he'll just keep attacking, and he'll get like 2 or 3 turns in a row based on the speed of your opponent, and also if you have clock up used on him, right? So you continue going forth. Chapter 6, you go against the Guardians. I think there's like 4 or 5 Guardians. You fight Kilika, you fight Major Sid, you fight Butler Philip, General Morgan, even the Duke! The Duke! Who I think it's Philip, Morgan, and Philip all in the same boss fight, and he's just there, like, healing the 2 of them. But Philip gets, like, his own, they all get their own S-Craft, but Philip in particular, I just find it hilarious, because in 2nd chapter, when he draws his sword against the 4 members of Ouroboros, he's like, I was once the Royal Guard, I will stand for my men here, and dude, he's tough. And then in particular, you fight the legendary Cassius Bright, which this boss fight was tough. I had to level grind. I refuse. If you lose the boss fight, you can retry it. And this game is, all these games are good in that fact. If you die in a fight, you can hit retry. And I guess that goes against your record if you're going for achievements and trophies. Maybe there's like no death runs or whatever. But I always hit retry. With Cassius, if you lose, it says retry with easy. I'm like, nope, I'm on normal difficulty. I'm not going to go to easy. So I did some level grinding and fought him. But, dude, this guy keeps attacking you. He's a tough boss fight. And when you get to maybe half HP, he'll heal himself and cast a buff where it's, I think, strength and speed up. And then his S-Craft just, it annihilates you. So you got to be prepared and keep Grail Spear at the ready.
Told you I could handle this.
I hold in my hand the chalice of heaven. May its holiest of lights act as our shield. Grail Spear! May 1,000 thorns adorn your flesh with despair. May you be as dark as ignorance alone. Carved within my soul's abyss, become a pillar of light upon this purgatory. Fly, holy spears of heaven!
Upon the the golden wings of battle. Descending to that land to rescue wayward souls. Come down and purify this black
So then the final guardian we have is Schwarzritter, who of course is low, wearing the mask. And there's one final goodbye, which I thought was great, between him and Joshua, where Joshua says, "I left your sword at Karen's grave," and Lowe's like, "Oh, we can both rest there eternally. Thank you so much, Joshua." A really emotional scene. And then they can make their way to the next area, which is Aster House, the orphanage where Kevin grew up. Now, before we get to that, I guess we'll talk about Kevin's backstory. So Kevin's backstory was that his father left him when he was really young, being raised by his mother, and she couldn't really take it after a while, just, you know, whether it was the money or what was going on there. So she thought to herself, let me kill myself and also kill my son. And when I said there was some dark shit in this game, that's the dark shit. His mother is trying to kill both herself and him. And, you know, Kevin didn't want to die as a young boy. So then his mother just ended up killing herself, and he was left with the regret that he did it. And just a really emotional scene. And that doesn't show itself until later on. I think the first flashback scene is just Kevin sitting in the alleyway with the snow, and Rufina and Ries show up. Rufina is Ries' older sister, who also died, and Kevin has guilt on his shoulders about that. So they show up and try to take him in, and he's not budging. He doesn't want to go with them. He's just sitting there, wants to die. And Rufina gives him chocolates in a very unconventional way, in that, you know, she takes a bite and sort of like makes out with him to feed him the chocolate. I know I shouldn't be laughing during the dark scene, but it is kind of a silly scene, and you know, it stuck with him. The sweet bitterness of the chocolate, I think Kevin mentions later on, how the memory's always been with him. And he was taken into Aster House by them, and was brought up through the ranks because Rufina started working with the church, the Septian Church. And then Kevin was there. He became a Grail Knight, one of the Gralsritter. And one day, when he was doing his church duties, learned that some Jaegers had ransacked Aster House, the orphanage where Ries had also lived. And so Kevin went in there, and beneath Aster House, similar to how beneath the kingdom in Gralsritter, there were these artifacts. Well, there was this artifact underneath Aster House called the Spear of Loa, the unholy artifact that became Kevin's S-Craft. And the Jaeger had seized control of it, turning into this demonic beast. And so Kevin fought him and got the spear himself, the Dark Stigma. That's when his Stigma was awakened. And killed him. And was just consumed by the evilness of the unholy artifact, and just started going on a rampage. It was close to killing Ries when Rufina showed up and protected her sister and tried to calm Kevin down, and in turn was impaled and killed herself. And when Kevin came to, snapped out of it, he saw that he was the one who killed Rufina. And as she's there with blood all over the place, dying, she's around Kevin, embracing him, hugging him, you know, still loving the boy. I know he's not a boy now, he's a man, but it's like, dude, that really hit, and I cried. It's just an emotional scene. The music playing when you get to Aster House, like I've listened to it since beating the game, and I cried just thinking of the music. It's a terrific theme, and just the way music can tell a story is really something else. And I don't know, man. It hits you in certain ways. It hit me in a certain way, and because of that, because of what Kevin's felt he's done, feeling he killed his mother, and also, I mean, he did kill Rufina, although he was possessed. He goes on to be promoted Dominion by Ein Selnet, the first Dominion, and he can't help but laugh because of the people and the blood on his hand, the people he's killed and the blood on his hands, and he's being promoted. So he deems himself to be the heretic hunter, and he wants to take on the most dangerous and deadly jobs as a way of his atonement, and in a certain sense, a way for him to kill himself. he hopes to kill himself in taking on all these difficult jobs. And from that day forward, because Ries didn't know the truth until the events in this game took place, Kevin didn't see her for 5 years because he didn't want to tell her. Which I guess I can understand. He didn't want to tell her he killed her older sister. And that's why Kevin's coping mechanism is to put on a smiling face and pretend everything's okay, when deep down, everything is not okay. So as they explore Aster House, they go into all the different rooms and remember the past, because of course Kevin and Ries were brought up there together, and there's some good memories there. But as they make their way into the altar, Kevin discovers the secret passage to go into the basement where the Spear of Loa was being kept. And then they're greeted by the ruler of Phantasma again, who has appeared throughout the game, and this time she takes off her mask, and it's revealed to be Rufina. Now, it's not necessarily Rufina, it's kind of like a possessed version of her. And then this is where we get the reveal about Kevin's past with his mother, how he feels the guilt for his mother dying, and how he killed Rufina. And despite all that, Ries is by Kevin's side here, and they try to attack Rufina. We'll just call the ruler of Phantasma Rufina now. And Rufina opens up Gehenna, opens up the gates of hell, like the floor literally turns into hell. And at first, Kevin's just going to be sent there, but Ries stands there trying to protect him, and she falls into the pits of hell, and Kevin dives in after her. And an excellent cutscene, man. We have our chibi pixel characters diving in there. Ries, being a sister, has, the coverings on her head there, or whatever you call that. It flies off, and as Kevin's falling behind her, he tries to grab it, but continues his descent into hell. And throughout the rest of the game, if you look at Ries's portrait, she just has her hair out, and oh, Ries, can we talk about Ries just being best girl? She is so adorable. I love Ries. And we get even more dark shit in Gehenna, where at this point it's just Kevin and Ries for the remainder of this dungeon. The music changes into just this really creepy music, and Kevin's battle quotes change. He'd always have his cheery, "Alright, what's next?" And things like that. Now it's like, "Stay alert!" He's more serious here. The voice changes a little. And as you progress, you find these demons, these souls who haven't moved on, and it's like, "Oh, is that you, Father Kevin Graham? I've been here for years, suffering with the pain, the heat, it's so hot!" And, he has to kill all these people who he killed again. One of them being a child who was turned into a vampire, I want to say, or something. It had something to do with eating human flesh, and so Kevin put him out of his misery. But in doing so, this kid, his soul has been wandering Gehenna for who knows how long. So Kevin has to put him out of his misery. You fight Kevin's mother, and she's trying to kill her son because she's dead, and it's just really dark shit, and just even thinking about it's giving me goosebumps right now. It's some fucked up shit. So at the end, once you reach the gates of Gehenna, you are greeted by none other than Weissman the Faceless himself. And you have a boss fight against him. He tries to coerce Kevin into joining him because, having the cube and all that, they can counteract it with the Ariel and whatever his mumbo jumbo was. And Kevin at first is like, "Yeah, I'm really not strong enough, but I gotta do what I gotta do." And at this point, his S-craft changes again. The Spear of Loa turns into the Spear of and his stigma was red, red hell, the devil, whatever. Now his stigma turns blue. And the battle quote when he does the S-craft changes as well. And again, terrific storytelling from him. wanting to punish himself, atone for his sins by throwing himself into the fire, now has a new lease on life and is going to strive moving forward. So I'll read it to you here, try to do it in the voice acting way I can. He goes, "O blue seal carved within my soul's abyss, become a pillar of light upon this purgatory. Fly, holy spears of heaven!" Just the way it's written just tells a story in and of itself, whereas you had the Spear of Loa, it's just evil. May 1,000 thorns adorn your flesh with despair. May you be abolished, ignorant and alone. Strike, unholy spears of time. Like, how depressing and dark is that? Whereas this one turns into more of an optimistic attack, and I don't know. I thought it was fantastic. And now I might as well talk about Weissman's, which I had his clipped in my second chapter review. But I love his voice actor, David Lodge, Kenpachi from Bleach, the first Kenpachi. It's like, can you feel it? The despair! It's fucking keto. So you have this epic fight with Weissman and 2 other devils, and it's kind of tough. Although, hopefully you have your S-Craft maxed out to 200. You can use Ries. It's like Heavenly Sphere, where she summons this angel to do this attack. And yeah, I think those attacks are more effective against the devils. It would only make sense. So, as that happens, more devils appear, and then the gate opens, and the whole party shows up, and they're led by the spirit of Celeste, who has also appeared sporadically throughout the game, sort of guiding our heroes. And an epic cutscene where the whole party shows up, saving the day, and they escape. And then they get their next plan of attack, which is basically manifesting the Arcel, the airship from the first 2 games, and breaking out of Phantasma and challenging the final boss. So before we get into that, I just want to talk more about the doors in particular, go through them real quick and explain what they were all about. So we have the 5 moon doors, the first of which is Agate meeting Tita's parents, Erica and Dan. And I think they said Dan was a former bracer, so I thought that was cool. And I actually thought the 2 of them were just out of the picture, like they had died or whatever happened, and it was just Professor Russell raising Tita. But they were away on their business, doing their work. And they came back to see their Tita because they heard that she was on Liber Arc and she was endangered by many people, by Agate, by Kevin, by the whole group. So Erica's not having it, and Agate becomes her test subject for the Orbal Gear that they're creating, which is Tita's way of trying to match Ren and her Pata Mater. So, excellent stories. I loved it. Moondoor 2, we learn more about Aina, who is the woman at the Roland Bracer Guild. And you get a flashback, I think it's like a 10-year flashback to young Shera, who was training under Kurt, where you see her meet Aina, and you have some fights where they're trying to steal her will. And she wants to donate it to all the orphans and make the world a better place. So I thought it was a great scene fleshing out more of Shera and how she met one of her friends, Aina. So Moondoor 3, we meet this character named Lecter, and he's at the school with Chloe. We actually learn later on that he's part of Erebonia. And I thought this was a cute scene as well, where you learn more about Chloe, this guy Lecter who is part of the council and keeps hiding. There's this other new character named Lucy who's kind of cute, and one of the other school kids is like, "Oh, will you go out with me, Lucy," or whatever. So it's just a cute little scene. Moondoor 4, Departure, one of my favorites. This is about Estelle and Joshua. Shortly after Joshua was taken in by Cassius, he's hesitant to accept their love. We have the adorable Estelle, who is very tomboyish and still is, where she likes to catch fish, she likes to catch bugs, she wants to play with Joshua, she's like, "Oh, my brother, oh!" Little did they know they'd be more than brother and sister. And you see more about Joshua playing the harmonica. Estelle is trying to impress Joshua by catching this giant bug, so she goes into the mist forest and gets ambushed by monsters, to which Joshua protects her, and it's so sweet. Estelle is my favorite female protagonist in all video games. I love Estelle. So it was great seeing more sweet moments of her, and especially some of the dialogue at the end where Estelle is like, I know you have something you don't want to tell me, Joshua, but when the time is right, I'm here. And of course, we learned all about that in Sky's second chapter. So sweet. Moondoor 5, the Happiness Stone. This was another sweet scene, which, like, they include all these scenes where it's like, do they really need to? And this expands on Matron Teresa and all the kids in the orphanage, where it's Matron Teresa's birthday, and they want to do something for her, find the stone. We have Clem, who's always getting into trouble, and he's like, I'll go here. And, you know, Mary is the one little girl. She encounters this dragon. It's just a sweet little scene, and at the very end, you get a picture with the kids celebrating with Teresa, and I think his name was Grant, one of the bracers. So I'll get to the star doors in a second. Let me just touch on the sun doors. Again, there's 5 sun doors. One of them is the Kapua's delivery service. That's like these are all mini games, by the way. That's a shooter where you attack Gilbert. Gilbert's trying to ambush you, and you fend him off. So funny. Which Gilbert shows up a ton for comic relief in this game, and then at the very end has his moment. Number 2 is the fishing minigame. You just get some funny dialogue with Estelle and some funny scenes with, I think it's 4, maybe 3 or 4 people you challenge. So that's cool. Then you have the arena, and the artwork for the arena is so cool. Like, you got Kevin all buff. Oh my god, Kevin and Zin. They're like, yeah, flexing. Like, what a Chad. He's going Super Saiyan. So, there's 3 different rounds. All more challenging than the next. I think the last round is Cassius versus Low. So that's a tough one. But I beat it. Enough grinding, you'll beat it. Number 4 is the casino. And this, like, dude, the attention to detail in all these games. Like I said before, there's the Gambling Jack book that you can read in the first 2 games. And here you challenge Jack to blackjack. And there's also this other character named Hallie. Or Hale, maybe it's spelled H-A-L-L-E. And they're from Calvard, which is another interesting thing, because we know Zin's from Calvard. And then you have the minigame of Campanella, which, I don't know, I guess they had to use Campanella for something. Which they use them for something else, but a goofy little minigame, you can see Campanella's outfits. It was fun. The questions aren't too difficult. The only difficult thing is the time limit. You gotta read everything real quick, and it's like sometimes they change the order of where the answers are with multiple choice. So anyway, let's go through some of the star doors. These, like I said, they're 15 to 30 minutes long. First one we have is Julia's day off, where she gets a day off. The queen grants her a day off, and she encounters Muir Vander, and they have a duel. And I thought it was nice. It's kind of like a shipping moment between the 2 of them, where we have the woman from Liberal and the man from Arabonia, and there's something going on there. Which there's something going on between Alibert and Shera. Definitely. Oh yeah. So, not really much to say about this one. You fight a battle. You control Julia versus Muir, and I won, but maybe there's different dialogue if you lose. Number 2 is the Salt Pail, which basically tells you about this crazy shit that happened in a place called North Ambria. And they turned the Salt Pail into a weapon, turning Weissman into salt in the 2nd chapter. So, this, all it is just, it's basically like a visual novel. Interesting, nonetheless. Number 3, The Banquet. So with this is at the very end of 2nd chapter, before everyone goes their separate ways. You control Joshua and talk to every character. There's some funny dialogue between Estelle and Josette, which I love that. And you get a scene with Joshua and Chloe, which Chloe has feelings for Joshua, but she is accepting of the fact that he loves Estelle, and they sort of have a nice conversation there. I thought it was sweet. Poor Chloe, but I guess she has Lecter. Number 4, Journey's End. This is Zin and Kilika returning to Calvard. Again, some interesting stuff. Zin, of course, from the East Calvard, and he's going to go back home. Kilika is going to go with him, and you know, I guess that plants seeds for other events to happen in other games. So hopefully we see Zin and Kilika again. I enjoyed both those characters, that's for sure. Number 5, Swordsmanship. I love this Star Door. This involves Cassius, Annalise, and Colonel Richard. And Annalise inherits Cassius's divine blade. She makes her way to the fortress, gets a letter, and has a duel against Richard. And Cassius tells her, you know, despite the fact that I gave up the sword, of course he was the divine blade, he gave up the sword because his way of fighting had changed throughout the years, in that he no longer wanted to kill, but defend, and that's why he uses a staff now, and also why Estelle uses the staff. And despite changing that, doesn't mean that you have to change your way of fighting, Annalise. So have this duel against Richard and inherit my blade. This was Kino. And Annalise, I am invincible! Or am I? So sweet. I love Annalise. I love Annalise's voice actors too, Cassandra Lee Morris. So, good stuff. Number 6, Training Agate Style. This is the 3 members of the Ravens, who they had a great moment in second chapter, where in first chapter they're these bandits, and then they have a change of heart once the Liber Arc shows up and all the electronics go out, and now they want to be bracers. So they're training under Agate. They have a little heart-to-heart where some of them split up, and then they come together in the end, and Agate deems, you guys can be bracers, but you have to work as a team. And I thought that was excellent. And I like how Agate's character has grown throughout these games too, where he's sort of in this one-man band, wants to do everything by himself, sort of also atoning for his sin in that he feels guilty about his sister dying, that it's on his hands, but now he's really grown up and he's taking on this leader role. I thought that was good. Number 7, the Epstein Foundation. I haven't talked much about that, but the Epstein Foundation are the people who created the orbments, at least the way to weaponize them. So you get some stuff there, some name drops about Professor C. Epstein, the Orbital Revolution, and his disciples, Albert Russell, Professor Russell, G. Schmidt, and L. Hamilton. I have no idea who the fuck those two are, but I'm assuming we'll see them in future games. So next up we have Star Door 8, Return to the Empire, which involves Prince Olivert and Major Vander. And we also meet the Iron Blood Chancellor, Gileath Osborne, which they name-dropped him in the second game. I don't even think I mentioned it in my review, but we see his face here. And if you look at his face, he doesn't look like a good guy. That's all I'm saying. And we also see Lecter next to him. And this is, of course, Olivert and Mueller returning home to Erebonia. Gileath seeking a council with the Queen Alicia. And again, look at his face. I don't think he's a good guy. And they kind of imply that he might have some knowledge, or at least be associating himself with people from Ouroboros. So we'll keep our eyes out on old Gileath there, and see what happens with him. But I don't know. I don't like the look of him. What do you guys think? Oh man. Now Star Door 9, Like a Mother. This is about Mabel and Leela from Bose, and how Mabel thinks that Leela is gonna get married, or at least is seeing another man. So she hires Annalise to spy, and it's just a cute little scene where you see all these ladies and they're kind of doing their gossip, and oh, are you seeing this one, or what's going on? What are you doing behind my back? So I thought it was sweet. Number 10, the Gordios Class Experiment Report. This is involving all the tests with Patomater, and explaining how no one could sync up with Patomater, and there were many people who died or put in comas or were never the same afterward until Ren matched with it. Star Door 11, Phantom Thief B report. This is them trying to get to the bottom of Blue Blanc's identity, which I wonder, is Blue Blanc even his real name? Maybe that's his last name? We haven't seen the last of him because, you know, he survived. And Star Door 14 shows you more about which Ouroboros members will be seeing in the future, I'm sure. Number 12, I accept your request. This one involves Richard and Amalthea. And Richard, now that he has left the military, has his own intelligence division where he does work on the side and relays it to people in the military. And I like Alan Richard, man. I've seen online people don't really care for him. He's an excellent party member, must have in the party. And his storyline is good. Like, he's the villain in first chapter. He's atoning for his transgressions and trying to make himself a better man his own way. And I like the little shipping aspect with him and Amalthea. I thought that was sweet. He's going out in the rain, and a really great scene. I liked it. Stardoor 13, Assault on the Imperial Guilds. This is explaining why Cassius left in first chapter. He was drawn away because there were guilds being attacked by Jaeger Corps. So that's why he left in the beginning of first chapter. And I think Campanella was involved in that. He sort of instigated it. Stardoor 14. This is probably the most important of the Stardoors. Phantasmal Blaze. So with this, when Campanella killed Weissman, really, I guess it was Kevin who killed Weissman, turned him into salt, and then Campanella burned him, and then was like, "Oh, I've much to report." He took Weissman's weapon, in turn, the Aureole. The Aureole was lost. Campanella took it. And he makes his way to speak to the council of the Anguis, the 6 remaining Anguis, as well as the Grandmaster. And before that, you actually see a great scene with Blue Blanc and Walter on the Glorious, contemplating their losses. Luciola's dead, I'm pretty sure, anyway. I mean, she said she killed herself. They kind of imply she could return, but the way Blue Blanc and Walter spoke to each other, it's like, oh, she's gone. They acknowledged that Lowe must have died, and of course Weissman died, because the whole Liber arc came crashing down. And then they do acknowledge that Ren flew off on Potamon, or they acknowledge he's alive. And Walter's sitting on the... Blue Blanc's like standing up, and Walter's sitting, smoking a cigarette. It's literally me. He's sitting smoking a cigarette, and he's like, man, I wish I could have gone head-to-head with Lowe. So that was cool. And I'm assuming we're going to see Blue Blanc and Walter in the next games. So Campanella is speaking to the Anguis. This scene reminded me so much of in Xenogears when you saw the Gazelle Ministry speaking with one another. And they're talking out the next plan they have with the Gospel plan, which is called the Phantasmal Blaze Plan, and the second part of the Orpheus Final Plan, whatever the hell that means. So I've heard, I haven't watched it, but I've heard with the Japanese version, if you play the Japanese version of these games, everything is voice acted in Japanese, right? But I play the English version, so it's all text. I've heard that the Grandmaster's voice is female, which is interesting. And, you know, I guess we'll see more of the Anguis. And the reason why I say this is like the Gazelle Ministry from Xenogears is you don't see their faces, you just see like their numbers. It also kind of reminds me of Saylight from Evangelion with their schemes. It's the Illuminati. The Illuminati of Trails in the Sky. So that's their planning. And again, like, all these things are skippable. You don't have to watch any of this stuff. So, great shit. Now we have to talk about Stardoor 15, Paradise. And how interesting is it that this Stardoor is located in the abyss of Gehenna, in Hell. This is a fucked up Stardoor. I don't even know how they included this in the game, but this one involves Ren. And, you know, I don't even know what to say about this. I gotta think for a minute how I'm gonna talk about it. But Ren is there with what appears to be other children. I think there's 5 other children. And they're all saying that they're there to protect Ren. But slowly but surely they disappear and they're not there anymore. Ren's talking to them like, oh, where'd that one go? Where'd this one go? Oh, we're just there to protect you, Ren. And I think these kids were never there. It was just a manifestation in Ren's head as her coping mechanism. And she was sexually abused. And it's, I mean, I don't know how the fuck they even included this in the game. It was some fucked up shit. The music that was playing, how it shows the images on the screen. This cute little girl, Ren, in her little dress holding her stuffed animal. To the next scenes where you have Lo and Joshua raiding the building. And you see the girl lying there naked with all these scars on her that I don't know if it's self-inflicted or if the people who abused her did it to her. But nonetheless, it's fucked up and I don't know. It was something. I mean, Ren's parents basically got rid of her as a young girl, and it I don't really know why. I don't know why they got rid of her. I can't quite understand, because it shows later where you see her parents again, and they have another child, and they're like, oh, we're so blessed to have this child. So something happened. I wonder if we're going to see that in Zero, because Ren is off to Crossbell. That's how the door ends, where she's going off to Crossbell. And then you also have Estelle and Joshua going to Crossbell. But this was some fucked up shit. They sexually abused this poor little girl, and the images they had are, I don't know, man. I as I played the game, I'm watching this, I'm like, what the fuck, man. So I don't know what I can really say, but I guess I have to touch on it at some point. It's just very, very disturbing. So those are the star doors. Another thing we have to talk about, of course, is the music. I love the music in the Trails games. This might have the best OST. I'll have snippets of all the songs, probably songs playing in the background as well. Some of my favorites are Overdosing Heavenly Bliss, Something Precious, Cry for Your Eternity, which I think that's the final boss theme, and it's sort of a remix of the opening theme song with lyrics. The Recluse Cube, The Hermit Garden, and my favorite song in the whole series now, Aster House. And a song, like, just listening to the song makes me tear up. It's a great song, and it's just funny how music can move you in certain ways. So the final dungeon, you split everyone into 4 different groups of 4, and you all make your way to a final boss. There's a 4-boss rush where, you know, it starts with whatever group. You have a gold version of Patamater. You have one of the Reverie Dragons, right? And then you also have like a red version of Ragnar the Dragon. And then finally, Rufina, which again was never really Rufina. It was a possessed version. The Spear of Loa possessed her when Kevin killed her. So you see like this giant beast. I think it's called like the Anima, another religious name, right? And you fight all the bosses, then you fight the final boss, Anima. And then you can see the spirit of Rufina, the real Rufina, her spirit, of course. And I was crying during this whole scene, man, and I don't care. I'm a very emotional person, not even when it comes to, like, you know, playing video games or watching shows or whatever. In real life, I'm emotional about a lot of things. I don't care, I'll say it, you guys make fun of me all you want. I was crying during this whole scene, like, I was literally sobbing. Just the dialogue, how emotional it is, how, like, if you've ever dealt with loss, it's I know this loss is kind of different, you know, Kevin killing her or whatever. But it always hits home to me. And she's accepting of it and understands why Kevin went about his business and has aligned him. I think Kevin says it's amazing how someone can be so kind and yet so cruel at the same time. And basically she says at this point she's suppressing the Spear of Loa and has to be killed in order to be at peace and so that Kevin and everyone can return to the real world. So she says, you know, Kevin, take out your bow gun and just do it, please. And while this is going on, just the fucking music that was playing, it was so emotional. I'm getting like, I'm starting to get kind of a mess right now talking about it. Just don't mind me, I'm sorry. And you have like the scene with Ries, who says, I want to hold the bow gun with you. And it's like, oh, that's your sister. It's like, it has to be done. I have to see this through with you to the end. And the animations of the chibi characters, like, people will go on, maybe say the graphics aren't good in this game. I love graphics like this, and how expressive these chibi models can be, as like you see their heads moving, where it shows Ries sobbing on Kevin's shoulder, and the two of them hugging. It's a beautiful scene, and I loved it, and it's gonna stick with me for a long time. Like, this game was fantastic. I loved pretty much every second of it, especially the story segments. I mean, I can understand people who get annoyed with random battles and stuff, but as someone who really only plays JRPGs, it's fine by me. Bring on the random battles. But again, the story is phenomenal, and I don't know what stories can even top this. It's just great. So, beautiful scenes there. Eventually, everyone's reunited, and because that happened, Phantasma is unstable, so Celeste opens the gate to send them back home. And everyone has their own tearful goodbyes. We actually have Richard and Zinn are the first ones to go, and they say they're the eldest ones here. So let's just get it over with. Let's say our farewells, and it goes down the line. You have like Tita and I like the pairs of which characters go together. You know, we have Tita and Agate go together. We have Olivert and Muir, which again, Olivert sort of goes on about business to take care of in Erebonia, which is my theory with Gileath Osborne not being a good guy, so we'll keep an eye out for that, what they're going to take care of. I think there's Julia and Chloe go together. Josette goes by herself, which is kind of sad that she didn't have anyone to accompany her. And there's the tension with her because he's like, oh, if you ever get sick of the tomboy, referring to Estelle, I'm open for you, Joshua. Like the love triangle of Joshua. We have Estelle, we have Josette, we have Chloe. They're all vying for him. Who else was there? Shara and Annalise left together. Ren goes by herself. That was another really emotional scene where Ren's going, and she doesn't understand. She's saying, and again, this makes more sense too if you've seen Stardoor 15 and why she is the way she is. And she can't understand why she feels so sad. And it's like, she says she didn't feel sad about Lo's death, but she feels sad about all her new friends leaving. And Estelle says, well, with something like that, you can accept death easier because, you know, you'll never see them again. But to say goodbye to a friend who is still out there, but you may never see again, is a very hard goodbye. And Ren starts crying, and Estelle says, every day you spend with someone could turn out to be the last. That's the reality all of us have to face up and fight every day. And that's when you get the confession where Estelle and Joshua are looking for her and want to take her in as part of their family. And they have Cassius's blessing. And then Ren's not having it, saying how much she hates the two of them. I hate you, I hate you. But then as she runs off, there's like ... but I also love you. So Estelle and Joshua are going to be looking for Ren in Crossbell, and I'm assuming Trails from Zero. And then you have the scene with Kevin and Ries running out, and a cute moment where Ries says, "Oh, will you hold my hand? Will you hold my hand?" And they make their way out, and then we see Ein Selit in the Merkaba 1, and it confirms that, because some of them are in like Erebonia and other places, confirms, I think, the locations of Zinn, Olivert, Muir, you know, those people. And then Kevin's like, okay, I checked in Libero and all of them are okay, so that's good. And you get a great scene too where Kevin was like, you know, say, has anyone ever changed their title? What if I don't want to be the heretic hunter anymore? And that's his growth in that he's moved on for wanting to punish himself and now will live for his friends and live for Ries, which obviously that's the ship there, you know. Let the two of them be a thing. I'm all for that. So we clearly know that's going on. And Ein Selit starts laughing, and the animation for her, like you see the head bobbing up and down, like she's laughing, like never in 1,000 years has a member of the Dominion or the Gralsritter changed their title. What is this lunacy? And what did you even have in mind? And Kevin's like, well, I haven't really thought of it yet, but I just thought maybe I don't want to be the heretic hunter anymore. And she's like, well, you better talk to Ries, because if you don't come up with something good, I'm gonna give you your new title myself. So there's that. And she also says, you know, the old Kevin Graham would never check in on those people. He only thought of his own goals or whatever. So you've really changed in thinking about these others. And beautiful game. I love the game. It was fantastic. I'm gonna have to replay these at some point. I mean, I did the live streams on my channel. Maybe one day I'll do a let's play of all of them. It'll be long let's plays, but I gotta replay them at some point. But of course, before we do that, we gotta move on to Zero, Azure, and then the Cold Steel games. And then I just want to read this at the very end. It says, "Thank you for staying with Trails in the Sky until the very end. While this story has told all it has to tell, there are still plenty more adventures to be discovered across the Zemarian continent." Oh, one more thing, I forgot to even mention this. Gilbert, as they're making their assault on the final area of the castle, Gilbert manifests his archaism to defend against this reverie dragon who's chasing after him. And they're like, oh, you're so brave, look at you taking a stand. And he fends it off for a while, but two others show up. And at the very end, as all the characters are doing their heartfelt goodbyes, he comes racing in like, aren't you forget... Actually, before that, I think Ries says, are we forgetting someone? You forgot about me! And Gilbert comes racing in. So, like, I love they made this stupid joke jobber character into something more meaningful. Beautiful game. And as I do this video, nothing's scripted here. I mean, I'll edit some things here and there where maybe I stumbled over my words or coughed or had a drink of water. But this is all off the top of my head. I don't script anything. I just say what it is. I said earlier, and I did my video titles, first chapter, I loved it. Second chapter, masterpiece. This game's my favorite. But overall, the Sky Trilogy needs to be played one after the other as a trilogy. Fantastic games, fantastic cast of characters. I still stand by this. I'll keep telling people, JRPGs are my favorite form of entertainment. They're better than movies, better than books, better than TV shows. That's it, man. Nothing. Very few, no movies, I don't think at all. Very few, anything has made me cry like these, as far as media anyway. As far as these video games have made me cry. And, it's just great. So, I'm so happy I spent, close to 200 hours on them. I'm going to continue playing them. I've thought about what to do next because I've heard from others, take a break, Kevin, between each game. You play one, then play a different game, play the next Trails game, whatever. Well, I just marathoned all 3 Sky games, but I think I will take a break before moving on to Zero. I am still very much looking forward to Zero, but I think it's in my best interest to maybe take a break from the Trails games for some time. And I'll think about my friend Father Kevin Graham, my friend Ries, Estelle, and Joshua, and yes, I consider these people my friends. That's how important these games are. And I have so many of the songs downloaded now. Like I listen to the songs every day, and yeah, here we go. So this video is gonna be like an hour long too. I promised myself this is gonna be like a half-hour video because second chapter was so long, but I had to say what I had to say. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I appreciate that. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And please, if you're new or even a returning viewer, give it a like. Subscribe if you haven't already. And that's all I got. Thank you so much. Have a great day, guys, and peace out.